This team went so quietly against the wall. Just I'm gonna open up. So Amber, can you hear me?
Yep.
Wonderful. Oh, that is great. I'm sorry I was the room that I was in, my bedroom is the one that I use during COVID when we had to record classes at home. So it was always good. The internet, I mean, it's a little further from the modem, but it supposedly was always fine. And I even turned it on at like 240 and it all was good. And then all of a sudden, when I saw you online, then it said unstable, and then it's been kind of so
All good.
funny
I was
enough.
like,
Oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah.
you have those.
Yeah. Hopefully we'll have a few people join a little later, or if not, I know a few. Again, we're away.
Okay.
So let me just kind of set my papers up there. So let me just kind of arrange. Um, Let me just double check quickly the email in case someone else is having problems checking in. Oh, shucks, yep. Yep, link. Kim is having a hard time. Okay, let me send it to her. Send. Please. Kim should be coming on. how does I could hear you quite well. Was it
Yeah, I think it's
yeah,
all
yeah.
good now.
Good,
Yeah.
good. Okay, okay.
And
That's
the other
nice.
one, it was like spotty, and I was like, I don't know if it's near you, but yeah.
Oh, okay, good. No, no, no. It was me because
Oh,
it had a bit, it kind of clicked off, and that's a quieter room. And luckily, just my son's home. He's in the room. If you hear some um, inadvertent swearing, he's playing video games, and that seems to bring out the worst.
I have a dog chewing her chew toy beside me.
Oh,
If you hear
that's
anything
nice.
weird, that's her.
Oh, that's okay. Let me see if I can show you while Kim gets on. There's my little dog, I guess 2.5. How old's yours?
She's 3.
Oh, okay. Does she still have the puppy energy?
Sometimes, yeah. Especially if I'm not paying attention to her.
I see, I see. Let's see. Is that a little pug?
She's a bulldog, but yeah,
Oh, okay, okay. Oh, that's what my son had wanted to get.
very busy.
But then my wife was like, no, it's gotta be you cannot shed. So
Okay.
the
Yeah.
doodles,
Oh, nice. Okay.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
How is what's your bulldog's name?
Moira.
Moira. And does he or she shed a bit?
She shed. I noticed this morning I was giving her some pets and she was shedding, but
Okay.
we don't have to groom her, which is nice because I was talking to another friend who was like, oh, like the groomers, you always have to get their hair cut and stuff. So
Oh,
we don't have to
yes,
do any grooming, but
that is definitely true. Well, luckily my wife, yeah, and they're not cheap, right? It's like
Mhm.
$80 a haircut. So my wife got the little clippers, she always has them charged, and actually
Yeah.
she enjoys it. So she's kind
Okay,
of
nice.
given Yuki like more trims. It's funny, my Yuki loves my wife, and she's kind
Mhm.
of at the window right now waiting for mom to come home. Went out for lunch, and but she because my wife loves grooming and even doing the nails, cleaning
Yeah.
the ears. So
Yeah.
Yuki kind of will love to come and kiss, 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 kiss her, and then run and hide under the bed because she knows that mom's going to do something to her.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I tell her, I said, when you're not home, Yuki's just like all everywhere. But once you come home, she hides under the bed. She's like, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kim. I'm glad you got through. Can you hear us? Kim? Wonderful. Okay, that's funny. I did put it on that email. Um, so I'm glad. Well, Amber got on, so I'm sure she got that email. I kind of sent it
Yeah.
to the whole group, and
Which email was it? The one about the silent
no, no, that one I
retreat?
didn't put on. No, it was like
The
last weekend after
class
our
two.
class,
Yeah, the
the
class two.
ACI two. Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea it was there. I didn't even look for it.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. Well, I was reminding
Sorry.
people. Well, I hope people like. I mean, it's funny because the first 3 weeks, a lot of people replied and they say, "But this week I'm away. This week I'm not." And this one I sent out right after class because I knew this is the one class. Well, one there's going to be. I'll tell you another one that we were doing online. So I thought I'll just send it out early,
Right.
and I probably should have just resent it. But then I kind of thought I don't want to send out too many emails, so I kind of just so I'm gonna do
Go
one
for it.
more check of the email, see if anyone else is kind of going, hey, where the hell are you? I
Yeah.
hope.
I,
Yeah.
I didn't think to look at that one. I looked at the other email you sent about the silent retreat. I thought it
Oh,
might have
okay,
been
okay.
attached to that, but
Yeah, yeah,
I
no, no.
was looking in the wrong place.
I know it was late, so I was kind of going, oh, I waited too late to send out, and I'm like, no, I'll just send out that as kind of a reminder. Okay, nobody else, so that we'll just record it. And
There it
we
is.
were.
Yeah.
Do you have a little dog or cat at home, Kim? I thought you had said you did.
I have 2 cats.
Two cats,
So
okay.
with any luck, Pipster will not impose herself.
Oh, okay.
She likes to do that, right? Cats know when you're fixed on a computer.
Yeah, well,
Kind of crawl around it and
Yeah.
see.
well, my meditation teacher does the meditation on Monday online, and so there is someone with a cat who always will just kind of plant herself there, and then I teach her, let's just who's a Buddhist teacher will always say, no, that's a good thing. You know, they are receiving some of the Dharma and this will help them in their next rebirth. So this is the extra bonus. They don't have to make a donation.
That's right.
Thank you both for coming. Why don't we start with our, I'm going to keep the headphones on because I think I was telling Amber it might get a little, my wife might come in and we might get a bit more sound. So I think this will be a bit better. But
Okay.
if you haven't moved all day, I will recommend you do the full prostration. But otherwise, let's just do 3 where you can do it in sitting, or I'm going to do it in standing. I'm going to take off my headphones and do 3 prostrations. Remember, that intention is to think of teacher, the real Buddha teacher, and any other teachers that have helped you on your spiritual path. All right, so 3 prostrations. And one of the points that was a nice, like, oh, aha for me last week, I was telling Kim Amber, is that, when we do, it was asking, the question was, is all good actions, good, they call it merit, leads to Buddhahood? And they actually, I always thought it did, but they actually was saying that unless you do it with that awareness of the 3 principal paths, it doesn't necessarily lead to Buddhahood. It will lead to a good result in this life or next life, but it won't. So this is why these opening prayers and the closing prayers is to bring that awareness. So this is where we're going to start with offering the mandala. And next week when you're in class, I'll show you the official mandala that you do with your hands. But just for now, when you do it, kind of just maybe have your hands, I'll show it kind of cupped like this. It's supposedly offering the mandala. And I'll show you the actual finger position next week. It's easier on person to show you. So have that in mind. And we will read this first one and then the second one 3 times, but this one's just once. All right. So whenever you're ready, here is the great earth, filled with the smell of incense, covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, the 4 continents, wearing a jewel of the sun and moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratnam Madalakam Niratanyami. And then you kind of flip it into a little Anjali Mudra, and then you kind of keep that by your heart as we say that second one on the refuge and the wish. And this one we repeat 3 times. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every being. One more. I go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I achieve enlightenment. By the power of the goodness that I do in giving and the rest, may I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. Right. And what we started with last week, Amber, that was new, was doing a little breathing exercise. And I believe it's a really good thing. I do it before Shavasana in classes when I teach, sometimes in the beginning of class, just to kind of calm down our busy mind. So I'm gonna lead that to this afternoon, that with your right hand, you fold your first two fingers down. So your thumb and your ring finger will close either nostril. You might have done this before. It's called alternate nostril breath. All right. And so sit up nice and tall, and you're going to exhale fully through your left nostril. And inhale slowly through the left when you finished. When you finish, closing your left nostril, exhaling slowly through the right. And inhaling slowly through the right nostril. Closing the right, exhaling slowly through the left. And so that's one round, and you're just going to continue. If your one nostril is really clogged, or both, you definitely use a Kleenex. And if that doesn't help, just visualize the breath going through one nostril at a time. Even if you have to breathe through the nostrils, through your mouth. As you continue, think of water through a hose, a steady stream, steady pressure, so that you're not forcing the air really strongly in the beginning or at the end, like this. And if you're able to, just to even lengthen the exhalation. Anything from earlier today, later in the day or weekend that you need to think about, you can think of releasing it as you exhale. As you continue, you might notice your head tend to drop a little or turn a little to the right. So try to keep it centered. And your right elbow may get a little tired. So if it does, use your left hand to just support the elbow like what I'm showing here. So this is a breathing exercise you can do anytime. Obviously, the longer you do it, the more of an effect it may have. I'm going to let you count on your own 7 more rounds. Right? Remember, the one round begins and ends on your left nostril. When you finish, no rush. Just close your eyes, have your palms on your knees, and take a few breaths through both nostrils. Give about, I would say I gave you enough time for about 15 rounds. And if you have a really busy mind, or really nervous, anxious about something, I'd say at least 10, if you can 20 before bed. It's wonderful. And I particularly like this one because, you usually say the common expression is take 3 deep breaths, but you're feeling really anxious, it's not enough. And it's hard to keep your mind, or to take your mind a little bit away from what you're worried or nervous about just by taking deep breaths. But this, you got to focus on, move your hand, finger and thumb. And so it actually gives your mind a little bit of a break from what you're doing. So yeah, definitely use that whenever you need to. But thank you again so much for joining me here on Zoom. I'm hoping we'll have a little bit more time for questions at the end, because it's actually, this one is a shorter class. But I thought I'd kind of just start by just asking that simple question of whether you remember any or all of the 3 principal paths. No, Amber, you weren't here, so maybe I can give you the first shot. If you don't remember any of the 3, that's fine. If you remember one of them, that's great.
I think renunciation is one.
That is, yep.
Yeah, I forget the other 2.
Okay, no problem. That is the first one, and in some ways one of the most important ones. So that's good. Kim, do you remember the other 2?
Bodhicitta,
Yeah.
the enlightenment to Buddhahood for the sake of every living being,
Yeah.
and complete view.
Yeah, complete view. And you were here in the last class, and those last 2 were, do you remember what they're supposed to help bring about?
I remember complete view was about emptiness,
Yes. Yeah.
right?
It's kind of, yep. It is about emptiness, which is what I'm going to review for Amber with a new little object.
Okay.
Yes.
So part of what I took out of that was emptiness allows an openness
Mhm.
to the world and to what's going on, instead of, when you were talking about perceptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it allows for a variety of perceptions, and it allows for an openness to what those perceptions might be,
Mhm.
which I thought was really, and calling it emptiness is an interesting way of approaching it, I think.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I will repeat it, Amber. Don't worry if any of what Kim was just saying might kind of be, unclear. But yeah, no, definitely that is what I was going to start. Well, yeah, start the class repeating, because that is the concept that, if there is one that you can apply into your life even after today's class, for the 2 gentlemen who were here last week, and I remember one of them said at the end of class, like, oh, there's really good ideas. I'm hoping that one is one that can allow, that Buddhism is offering as a way to see our lives and how we can change it. So yeah, so definitely emptiness, and also they'll say karma, the belief in reincarnation is part of the correct view, wisdom, and they say that that path leads to um, the mind of the Buddha, the Dharmakaya, right? Remember that one, Kim? Yep,
Yes.
yep. And then so the bodhicitta, the wish for enlightenment, not just for yourself, but to help all beings, that, you remember what that leads one to? If you,
That one, it's a little less clear.
yep, yep. Okay, not to worry. Well, kind of think of us, I think of it as like, we as humans are, we can say it's our mind, right? Our conscious mind, but we're also made up of our body.
Mhm.
And so they say bodhicitta, the wish for reaching enlightenment to help others, is another word they had mentioned was merit. It was actually in doing good. And this is what I might kind of explain next class about, it isn't just a thought. There is actually actions. There's things that you work on to um, help your bodhicitta,
Right.
and so that will lead to the body of a Buddha, you know. So that was called Rupakaya, right? And okay, so that's great. I mean, just because this course, these 10 classes about the 33 principal paths, I thought, wanted you to kind of know those three. But what you had mentioned, Amber, is what we mentioned in the first class, but in the second class, it was saying these two, bodhicitta and correct view, lead to the body of the Buddha. But what about renunciation? And the explanation that there isn't three is just because renunciation is probably the preliminary. That
Mhm.
if you really didn't feel like, like the definition I gave out was disgust with life, that you didn't
Mhm.
feel there is a need to um, get out of this cycle of being born and reborn, then you wouldn't do bodhicitta. You wouldn't want to take time to learn about Buddhism. And I thought that's kind of what I wanted to share. It's kind of like, you know, Saturday afternoon, I think it's a perfect uh, time to kind of go, you could be doing many other things. I mean, today isn't a beautiful day, but it's actually, I can see the clouds are clearing. It's not cold, it's not rainy. You could be doing a gazillion other things right now. Maybe you're like me, you like learning different things. I mean, that's why I kind of came to this. And you could be learning gazillion different things too. You know, my kids, now that they're old, they no longer put a restriction on their screen time. And the younger one is on the internet on his screen almost from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed. Luckily, he does his homework and his chores, but there is so many more things they can entertain themselves with than maybe we ever had when we were young, right? We have the TV, you can't bring it with you. But they can watch, they can bring it with, they can download a movie, they can, it's a common thing to hold your phone and walk. It's quite a skill. Many people are very good at it. So you can,
But it's bad for you.
yeah, yes, I didn't say it's good for you. I just said these are the choices that
Yeah.
we have at this time. Um, that, um, you know, as I told you, and it was like, why did I do this? Why, and maybe why so few people are on this path. And I think what I had kind of just written down for myself last night was just, it is what Buddha said about life is suffering. That's, Amber, what we kind of, I felt like we focused on a bit more in the second class, um, more about the renunciation. Why is life, supposedly, why do we need to feel this sense of disgust with life? Because I actually, you know, coming into that first course, I didn't feel that. I felt life is beautiful. I would say I was an optimist, and though I had a lot of bad things that happened in my life, my dad passed away when I was really young. Mom got a couple of divorces, single mom. I mean, I can go on, but I would kind of go, I learned through reading some of those self-help books, going to some workshops that, you know, uh, things are there to teach us and that we can learn from them. And they make us who we are. And, life is school. And so, came into the path of yoga and I felt better when I did yoga. I believe there, you know, that's how I continued on the path of becoming a teacher. And, that I told you even on the first class, we live in one of the most beautiful places in the world, right? I mean, different Hawaii, a wetter one, but it's beautiful. I come back from Greece and I'm so happy to, everyone can say it's so beautiful, but very few places compare to Vancouver, where we're living. And, you turn on the news, you hear wars and like yeah, we're so blessed. So it, funny enough, if you had heard that saying by Buddha, I actually didn't. I didn't until I took this course, that life is suffering. And it did actually take me a few classes, maybe even, I don't know exactly when, but it was maybe after a few courses and hearing the teacher repeat it, that, and having time to meditate on it and think about it, that it started feeling more true, you know, that, what was one of the sufferings you remember, Kim, that I might have shared or that maybe kind of clicked in for you about one of the big six that we talked about in the last class?
The big six sufferings.
Yeah, or I mean, if any of them, like, does it?
Oh, yes.
Because
Well, everyone suffers physically, mentally, emotionally. And
yeah,
there
I would say,
I only got 5 of the ones, so I was going to ask you to repeat
oh,
them
okay,
again.
okay,
But I
okay,
got
that sounds good. I
you
will repeat them. Yeah, actually,
you can't take anything with you.
okay, that's one of the big. It's almost like these six, Amber, I'll kind of review, are almost like maybe I would say the bonus sufferings, because there's actually the basic ones that I think we all can kind of agree with is the physical suffering that, maybe you don't have it, but I'm sure you just have to go when you see people physically suffering, you might be in your own way, your family members might be, right? Like that is uh, part of being alive, I guess we accept. But yeah, mental ones, I mean, that's the thing that I feel like uh, we're more blessed in this age to accept that, you know. I told you before I was a big sports fan, and there's been a lot of sports figures that have now openly admitted mental concern. I mean, I love how, you know, the description of people in downtown East Side is not that they're just addicted, it's kind of mental suffering that has led them to needing substances, right, to help with that, which I guess you could say is connected to emotional suffering, which we all have too. Um, who doesn't have emotional suffering on a daily basis, an hourly basis? I mean, uh, yeah, there I was last night. I was kind of just getting annoyed at, now look back on it, a really tiny thing. My wife was just kind of throwing out food I didn't think need to be wasted. And didn't have a big hissy fit, but I could feel it in my body. Like I was like, "Arr." And it took a lot longer for me to. I should have done the alternate nostril breath, but I was just like, "Arr," and I was like, I'm gonna you know, type up my notes. I can't do this, but I'm feeling so like, oh, you know, yeah. And funny enough, I joked with some joked with some teachers before. I said, you know, us yogis, we're actually quite sensitive. You know, I remember being called in when I was young, and the teacher was so happy. You know, she's like, "Oh, you guys must be so lucky, a bunch of yoga teachers. You know, must be like so zen when you guys have a meeting." I said, "No," I said, "We're very sensitive people, and when we sometimes there's a lot of like we have to, you know, clear things up because, uh, yeah." So it just always makes me smile. Yeah, we have I do. I have my emotional sufferings daily, and spiritual ones. I mean, yeah, if you don't know where you're going, I thank these teachings because I'm sure I would have some midlife crisis if I didn't have already, if I didn't have this to um, help me out. But yeah, those I guess are sufferings that you all know us humans have. You know, I can be an optimist, but you can't say we humans don't have that. But the other six, I would say, are ones maybe not many people, not you might not agree with them, but one of them Kim had just said. It was like kind of like, if you die, nothing you can't take anything with you. None of your prized possessions, none of things you've worked towards all your life to, you know, your craft, whatever it might be, your skills. Can't take that with you. Your loved ones, um, you know, you can't take with you. Um, yeah, pretty much the Buddhists will say the only thing that goes with you, it's not that you take with you, is the fruit of your actions. You know, if you had done good things and they did not ripen in this life, you'll take that karma into your next life where it could ripen, or it could be future lives after that. And then same with not so good, um, not just actions, but our thoughts. You know, so this is where yesterday I didn't really. I mean, maybe if you saw me on film, I wasn't mean to my wife, but I definitely in my mind was like, are you, you know, so wasteful? Our son's here, and we've had a lot of people come, and so we've had to, you know, kind of spend a lot in hosting and people. And I kind of said, look, we so, but yeah, in my mind there was like, and as I told you, maybe the first day, anything done with more emotion is more karma. Whereas I could be like, oh, have a beautiful day, you too. But there isn't this, you know, same intensity of emotion. Obviously, the karma is not as strong. And unfortunately, that's what the Buddhists say about our good acts. They're not usually done with as much energy as the not so good karma. So yeah, that's one of the six, the death. One of the other ones, and any of these, Amber, if they don't kind of like sit in, just kind of maybe consider them as something to think about. But another one of the six they might say not everyone thinks about is that life is uncertain. That you may have plans. I mean, I use the thing as a weather. Weather changes, and so do our plans. You know, you might make plans right now for what you're going to do after, and suddenly you might get a text after things change. Um, the best laid plans are usually not always going to come to pass. Um, yeah, it's we've we'd like to have control. We you know, do things like just kind of setting up this computer. I was just like, oh, I had it all set up, and I'm like, I'm gonna do it early because I do know things can happen. Then nothing goes wrong until like I see Amber on the screen, and then the internet's unstable. And then I come to this computer and I turn it on, and it won't let me log in. I have to turn it off again, and this is like a slow computer. So yeah, it's yeah, life is definitely uncertain. The second one is that no matter what you have, you always want more. No matter what you, how much you have, and yeah, I'll give you a pause to kind of think of something that you've accomplished, something you enjoy, be as simple as your last meal, treat. And yeah, maybe you might not want it something more right away, but it won't be soon before you do. You know, and I think we almost accept that. We don't almost kind of go, oh, yeah, that's normal. Maybe we're growing, but it is this view that, yeah, our satisfaction is very temporary, very short. Yeah. And though you may think I would admit I'm kind of like a simple person, I don't have many wants, you really are honest and go, okay, well, what do you want? You know, right after this, I'll be like, oh, I want to finish this. I want to do this. It's human nature, and we might admit that, but it doesn't. It is, the Buddhists will say, a type of suffering to not be satisfied for very long. So yeah, that's another one. This third one, I think that we also accept, you know, I told my kids this, and I'm like, yeah, you know, being born, getting old, getting sick. I mean, you might be one of the lucky ones who don't get sick and then suddenly pass away from an accident or peacefully. But I'd say even peacefully, you know, something went wrong inside the body to cause you to pass away. And then to die. Like this whole cycle of life is something I think we accept. But it isn't, you know, I guess it is part of what the Buddhists will say is suffering. And so the fourth one is that you go through this cycle, birth, getting old, getting sick, and dying, but you go through this a lot. And this one, you know, the Buddhists say, this is a stat that kind of just astounds me. They say, oh, think of the grains of sand in the earth. You have been reborn more times than every grain on the earth. And that isn't necessarily being reborn as a human, but in those three lower realms, you know, as a hell being, as a craving spirit, as an animal. And then we are part of what they call the desire realm. And there's two other realms above it, the form realm and the formless realms, which are, it's, you know, if you heard of angels or demigods or gods, beautiful creatures who live a very long time and they're living in bliss for a long, long time, but they're not Buddhas yet. And so unfortunately, these two realms, they will live a really blessed life. And when all that good karma ends, they also suffer, they die, and then they actually head back down into the hell realm. So their journey isn't done. But yeah, so we go through this cycle of rebirth over and over and over, but we don't remember it. But that supposedly explains why some of us come into this birth with certain skills, or you could say some with certain weaknesses. You know, people come in with disabilities. It's kind of coming from, you know, past karma. But yeah, on the other hand, prodigies who come in and, you know, at a very young age, they have this skill. We all have certain gifts that, you know, can't say came from our parents or came from our learning. So yeah, that's another suffering. So the fifth one, this one is simply what goes up must come down. That they see everything in the cycle life like a seed, that you plant it and there's a cycle of its growth and then it's passing away. And so, yeah, you might be at a phase where maybe in this lifetime things are continuing to grow. They haven't gone down yet, but I think we can see that in a lot of things, stock market, possessions. I have a 20-year-old, 21-year-old Volkswagen Beetle that I loved for so long. And, day by day, it's like the clear coat's coming off. I bumped it so many times, I'm not even fixing it anymore. And now my son's at this point where he's like, he said, Dad, can you drop me off 2 blocks from like where he was meeting his friends or school? And I was like, oh, it's okay. I can drive you closer. It's fine. I can, I can find parking. He's like, no, no, no. Just embarrassing. The car is embarrassing. Yeah, it does look like, I look around at the cars in Vancouver. Most of them are not beaters. In Greece, I would fit in. I was telling my wife, my car would be okay, but here it's started to, stand out in its own special way. But yeah, I was telling some of you, you guys joined during COVID when we were just closing the third studio, and then we closed commercial, and yeah, it's again, we can say we accept it, but it's another one of the suffering. So yeah, the big four, and then these other six. Just hearing again and having time to kind of think about it more and more really made me, I guess I felt it kind of like, am, you know, what am I working towards? I definitely had my main goal was to spend time um, with my kids. I had a broken family when I was young, and so it was wonderful to meet a beautiful wife who wanted the same thing. And then, during COVID, the joy of the weekend was spending time with them. I am so lucky I was at Open Door able to start working at home from a really young age, which kind of helped because as yoga teachers, we all have different schedules. We can work at the studio, but there's classes in the morning and evening. So it was perfect that we had been emailing, working from home like a long, long time ago. And I kind of pushed that because I like to be here. Kids woke up from their nap or came back from school, and I try to, I work really late. I wasn't an early bird, but yeah. And then yeah, there was in COVID, and they're like, Dad, we don't want to hang out with you anymore. And yet I understood because I didn't want to hang out with my mom anymore when I was 15 or 16 too. And that was um, so I was like, oh, what do you pursue? Do you want like more money, or open more studios, or yeah. So this definitely this this message of that Buddha said sank in more and more and made me kind of go, yeah, this cycle life that we're going through isn't as fun as it may seem, as much as I might enjoy it. I remember the teacher was telling this. I don't know if any of you watched the Disney Pinocchio when you were young. And I watched it, and the scene that reminded me of as they're talking about, the things that we do in this life, which just kind of is kind of when Pinocchio and all the other kids were, I don't know, were they lured? They came into that special park where they, were able to do whatever they wanted to do, eat whatever junk food, break things, have fun. And then, slowly they turned into donkeys. And it's kind of like and he kind of noticed that and tried to escape at that part. And I guess that's kind of what I suddenly was feeling like, oh, I'm just gonna, I can try to have as much joy as, and pleasures, but it's not gonna really, it's gonna be end, you know? And so, yeah, this is what gave me the kind of, okay, let me see what is the escape from this. So, I mean, this is when, the teachings talk about Buddhahood, um, a place where there isn't suffering, where there is permanent joy, and I won't even use the word happiness, but it's and that the Buddhas are there to help others. They will emanate um, as other beings, as physical objects, as animals, anything to help the rest of us reach the same place. Okay, that sounds better than, the suffering life. And so that's why I kind of said, okay, I'd like to learn more. So I'll come back to that story on what is, I'll say this is the kind of the path, but okay, what is one of the first things that we can do is, Amber, I shared a pen last week, but I'm going to share a different object this week because I don't think, Kim, you know what this is, right, Kim? Nod if you don't know what it is. Good. I'm glad I kind of actually, my wife brought this home, and I also kind of go, hun, don't bring like more kitchen stuff. We only have so much space. So, something comes in, something's got to go. But so, and I go, what the hell is this? So this is really good because as you look at it and I kind of turn it to different angles, you don't know what it is, right? Take a guess though. I'll give you each a guess.
A kind of whisk.
Okay, yeah, I thought so too. Yeah. Amber?
Yeah, I don't know. Something with eggs.
Okay, so something to beat the eggs. Yeah, like kind of maybe like a special
Maybe, like,
poacher, right?
separate somehow. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, pick up a special egg. Um, my wife really likes sourdough bread, and someone from work gave her a little sourdough starter, and she made her first sourdough. Awesome, and it was really, really good. And then she brought this home. What the hell is this? She goes, oh, this is to mix the yeast and the water. So it is kind of like a whisk thing, but I'm like, why the shape? What the heck? So this is a good example that like very few people, unless you're in the sourdough, industry, right, kind of go, what is this? So Amber, common story that Geshe Michael Roach says, he uses a pen and he says, well, most people will say, get a real pen, that was a highlighter. Will say, yeah, that's a pen. But they're saying that, your dog, Kim's cats, my dog, will not see this as a pen. You see it as a chew toy, right? Little baby comes in, they might kind of uh, see the same thing, a chew toy or, something to play with. Um, Maybe an Aboriginal from the rainforest in Brazil might see this as a weapon, potential weapon, or tool, right? Not to write on. So what the Buddhists say is this proves that an object like a pen, something that we all, I don't know what it is, we feel like maybe like a stop, like a red light, that something in it exudes out the definition. It's a pen. It's a pen. And so that most humans will look at it and we can all agree, oh, it's a pen, you know. But the fact that we can say that other beings, other certain humans, other creatures don't see it as a pen, means that it really isn't that the definition of this object doesn't come from within, but it actually comes from us. You know, that the Buddhists will say that from our past karma, we've projected a definition onto this. So this is like a really good example that you had no idea. You didn't have the karma to know what this object was, and you took a guess. And I didn't either. But now that you know, yeah, maybe the next one you see, a bigger one, or you might kind of think, yeah, it might be used to make sourdough bread. So, yeah, that the simple example, or calls it a teaching. Yeah, Buddhists usually kind of say every story is a teaching. Is meant for us to kind of now see the world as not coming from outside, but coming from within. You know, that image when I heard this was that maybe you've probably heard, I don't know, I think it's out already, that there are some Google glasses or something that people can wear, these visors that I don't know, but I had heard the plan was that you can wear them, and as you walk outside, that maybe on the side you would get info about what you're looking at. Maybe you're looking at a building and it gives you the history or something. It's kind of like maybe a VR set is a good example. You know, they have those VR sets. I don't know if you've gone to one of those game centers and you put it on and then you're in this imaginary world and you're doing stuff. When I think about it, is that they're usually it's a shooting game. You know? But suddenly you're wearing something that takes you into a different world. Well, our reality is the same. You know, what we think we see, well, I'll just use our sight, for example, might feel like we're looking at objects out there, but supposedly we're actually really looking at just a movie, you know, that the old film, I don't know what speed they go, but they say on one finger snap, there's 65 projections, according to the Buddhists, that are clicking through to make things look like they're moving. The same way as in a movie, it's like still pictures, but by having them move, it feels like there's motion. So that's supposedly how the Buddhists say we see things, and it'll apply to what we touch too. That you can touch something firm, and you might go, "Oh, that's hard," but it really isn't that object that's hard, but the senses that go to your hand that tell you that is hard. And that applies to your hearing, or your taste, you know, our five senses that really are what gives us this sense of the world that we live in. So, you know, this is a big concept. This is emptiness. It's not as common and well known as karma. And it is for this reason. I think it is quite a different way to see the world. But that, and, you know, if that doesn't kind of feel like something that you can accept right now, you don't need to. But if you can just accept that if this is true, you know, suppose this is true, that our projections create this virtual, like that we are actually living in a virtual reality. You know, if some of you have watched the movie Matrix, it's commonly known as a Buddhist movie, you know, that we are living in a world, even though we're not really in that world. We're just kind of living a projection, you know. But yeah, Buddhists don't say that we're in this little pod being used for body heat, but it's supposedly the same, that we're just living in this virtual reality, and it just happens. You know, sometimes you might go, "Oh, well, there's other people like you two are watching me," but the real truth is, you know, if you really share what you see, what you hear, what you feel, your feelings about what you're seeing and hearing from me might be completely different. So yeah, this fact that we're living kind of our living in this virtual reality, if you can consider that, what it does mean and what it's meant to help us is that it is something that then we can change, you know. So Buddha's has 4 Arya truths, you know, one is suffering that I've repeated, but the second one that is there is a source to our suffering. And the second one is saying what this emptiness is saying is that the source of our suffering, why we think, oh, you know, why is, you know, my wife, you know, so wasteful, you know, for example, or last night, yeah, she did kind of yell at me when I kind of was nagging, and then she yelled at me. Why was she nagging at me? Like, you know, she's so mean to me. It really wasn't coming from her. It was coming from actions I have done. You know, this film, this virtual reality that we're watching is produced by our thoughts and our actions. We're constantly creating it. I'm creating my karma for the future, you know, and you two are doing the same. So, you know, the third one is that there is an end to the suffering. And so, you know, for example, as I was nagging my wife last night about not wasting food, at some point she like stopped, you know, just like, I don't want to talk anymore. And like, she said in a really harsh way. That's what I felt. And no more conversation that night. That if I want to stop that kind of feeling and that result, I need to recognize that I created this image, this whole sensation, and that I need to be super aware not to yell at anybody else. Because if I do, then I'm going to plant the seeds to create that in a future part of my life. You know? And it could come as soon as, you know, the next day, or it could come later on in my next life or lives after that. Because they say the karma ripens, and this is a mystery that we don't know until you're Buddha, that they don't know which karma will blossom at what time. There seems to be this time lag. So yeah, this is where the 4 Arya truths, there is a path to the end of suffering. The path to the end of suffering is that, okay, you know, for example, I don't want to be yelled at. I now recognize I created it. I'm going to stop it from happening. And that, you know, the path to ending all this suffering of being a Buddha, so I don't have to go through this cycle of rebirth over and over. How will I get to where I can see myself as a Buddha? Well, if they're saying that everything I see is a projection, that my projection now sees me as a 51-year-old male, if I want to see myself as a Buddha, I would have to plant the seeds to see myself as a Buddha. You know, and that's one of the reasons why I kind of continue learning about this, because that's planting the seeds. Teaching this is planting the seeds. Doing good with this 3 principal paths of the back of our mind is accumulating karma. But that's, yeah, to reach Buddhahood, you need a lot of karma. You know, Amber, I don't know if you played the Super Mario Brothers, that was what metaphor I was using. It's kind of like this video game where we have to collect enough coins to reach the end. And if the end is Buddhahood, then we need to create the karma to suddenly see ourselves as Buddhas and no longer as Kim or Amber or Hogan.
Can I ask you a question, Hogan?
Yes.
So the four parts to suffering is life is suffering. There's a cause to the suffering. There's an end to the suffering, and there's a path to the end of the suffering.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between there is an end to the suffering and there is a path to the end of the suffering. Is the path a longer term perspective?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I mean, like it may sound like the third is okay, there's an end to the, there's an end to the suffering, and it's like, okay, is it like as easy as one sentence? If
Right.
that was the case, this is where, they'll say the Buddhas cannot get rid of our karma. Like, they're, as I said, the Buddhas are here to help us. So they can't, unfortunately, if you've done a lot of karma and say you've killed a lot of people in a past life, part of the karma, the result maybe in this life is that you have a short life, and that you get sick very often in this life. So they've mapped out some karmas. It's, we'll go through that later on. But yeah, that sounds like an easy sentence to say, but it's trying to say, well, what we talked about, the Lam Rim Chempo is the path. It's like these are the steps to get to Buddhahood. I could summarize and say it's getting a lot of karma, but what are the things that are going to get a lot of karma, right? There are things that you do. One of them is to meditate, one of them is to study. So these are there is a path. It's not like instant, so they say the Buddhas, they know everything. They're omniscient is the word they use, omniscient, but they're not omnipotent. They're not like God who can, just, if they could, we wouldn't be suffering. That's what, and there is a whole course on, yeah, I mean, if you can also, tell a friend, well, what have you learned from Buddhism? They don't believe there is a God. The Buddhists have a lot of powers, you could say. They don't have the power to make us Buddhists. The only way they can is through their teaching, by helping us change our minds, by helping us remember that we all have to do it ourselves, unfortunately. We're not, because we're still living in the cycle of karma. So we're the ones who have to get ourselves out. So yeah, just coming back to bodhicitta, this is where, some who learn this might go, yeah, okay, I want to get out of here. But they might kind of go, well, maybe getting everybody else out is not really kind of what I want to do. But they say having that motivation, if you have that motivation in your mind, even if it's kind of just a thought right now, boosts the karma of what you do. You might make a little offering. Just say you're going to give $5 to someone on the street, and you're like in the back of your mind, okay, I'm doing this so that I can reach enlightenment. But if you were to give it with the same thought that, oh, I'm trying to reach Buddhahood so that I can save all beings, supposedly the karma from that is like magnified by so much more by having that thought of helping others. So it's almost what I was telling you is that people can't reach enlightenment on their own. To reach full Buddhahood, you have to do it for all beings. And if you did it all on your own, you'd have to come all the way back from the beginning and do the path, like repeat the whole thing just to get to the final destination. So one thing I might have touched on, but I think I want to describe a little bit more, is along this path, we're accumulating karma. But one of the, I guess, really important stops on this path is, we talked about emptiness. This is the description of emptiness that you'll hear me repeat it over and over again. And it's just saying that things do not exist, are not self-existent. That's what you'll read in it. They do not exist on their own. They exist because we placed a meaning on it. The same way, like that saying is, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. You have your dog, maybe 8 out of 10 people Amber might say, oh, it's a beautiful dog, but 2 people will go, oh, that's an ugly dog, and it's nothing about the dog, it's just their projection, right? So nothing in itself, an object, a person, an event, is maybe what it is. It's just us projecting the feelings and thoughts onto it. So I can say that, and as I said, you know, something bad happens to you in the next half hour, you unfortunately you won't remember that. And then you'll be like, what a asshole or idiot. You know, they might have been a bad driver. You go out there and someone cuts you off, or someone in line somewhere buds ahead of you, or just someone does something, you just kind of, you know, what is going on? What a Dumbo. Or someone yells at your dog. I've had people yell at my dog, or you know, and you go, why are they like that? You know, suddenly you don't remember that this is you caused this, right? So this direct perception of emptiness, let me just kind of remind my wife I'm outside because I'm supposed to be in the room. I have to be outside because the internet's not working.
Why don't you use my phone then?
No, but I have to have the camera on, so I'm just outside, right? It'd be really funny if she yells at me and then you guys could hear it and you guys might laugh, but I'll be like, oh. Anyway, so this along this path, if you have enough karma, you supposedly will have this experience of the direct perception of emptiness, where what we're talking about is just intellectual, but they say it happens as you start seeing, you know, the Buddhists will say, when you look at an object, what you actually are really doing is your mind isn't able to see this whole object. What it's doing is kind of like looking at the top, looking at the bottom, side, and it's kind of seeing parts of it and then kind of putting your projection on it. So this direct perception of emptiness can, prior to it, you might suddenly start seeing a reality and you're starting it maybe like that Matrix movie, like it's kind of like things don't look, it's almost like it's staticky. The internet's unstable, like things are suddenly not so smooth. And supposedly, as a Buddhist, you're supposed to go into meditation and go sit in meditation and experience it. And what you supposedly will experience is see and experience in real life how we have created this reality that we're living, you know, like see behind the scenes to this virtual reality that we're living in. And it's only it can be as short as only 20 minutes, but within those 20 minutes, you'll come out of it and you will still see things as self-existent, but you won't no longer believe it. Yeah, you will see it, but as opposed to right now, you look at this computer screen, you look at me, and you're like, oh, he's saying this, or you know, there's a computer. It's you don't, you know, you may not believe that it's kind of coming from your projection, but this experience will, you know, take you to I don't know what percentage of the Buddhahood you're on, but it's a really big one. And that after that, supposedly you only have 7 lifetimes to reach Buddhahood. And so that is one of the reasons why, you know, prior to learning about it more, I was like, I had a hard time meditating regularly. And I'm a yoga teacher, and I'm supposedly, you know, and I have gone and done meditations, but was never really regular about it. But to be able to, you know, and so there are many benefits to meditation. You can go just Google it up, you know, like for health reasons, blood pressure, dealing with stress. And I always thought I could deal with it in other ways, that meditation is just hard. You know, you sit there and you focus on your breath, and I couldn't even hold it for 10 seconds. You know, I've tried. It's just like, and then it's gone. And you know, it's not like yoga where most times you'll finish a class, you'll feel better. Sometimes you'll finish a meditation session, you don't. and it was just hard. It was just a hard practice. But what kept me going was that you need to develop the concentration to be able to have this direct perception of emptiness. So I'll kind of repeat it, but I thought I would kind of just let you know that's one of the steps along the way. So I do need to kind of go over a little bit of what this class also shares. And it's maybe something that you'll be open to. And it's talking about the importance of a teacher. That, you know, if you think about what skill or hobby you have, you know, you feel you have done in your life, it could be lessons. I think music lessons is a common example that they use, that it requires a teacher. And, you know, I actually really respect some people who have learned, like my brother-in-law, just I'm really impressed. He, you know, I think started a time when people got, you know, a lot of people are taking pictures, and he started watching a lot of videos on YouTube, and he kind of became a self-taught photographer and started getting gigs, taking wedding photography, and yeah, he's done quite well for himself. And as I've kind of openly kind of appreciated him and praised him, I do realize though that maybe though he didn't have like a teacher who gave him feedback and talked to him, he actually was relying on teachers who were teaching on YouTube, you know, that he learned from people who've done it, right? But you know, they say in Buddhism, obviously having a teacher, some of them, you're right, didn't have a, you know, learn through their writing. It wasn't always live where they were able to ask questions or able to get feedback, or, you know, get to share a little bit about themselves. So yeah, there's many stories. One of the ones that Geshe Michael Roach talks about was a famous teacher, yogi named Lord Atisha. And he was one of the first teachers to have brought Buddhism from India to Tibet. So you might hear that name a lot. And back in 1000 AD, they had to travel by ship. He traveled 6 months to 1 year to find his Lama in Indonesia, to learn the Bodhisattva vows. Those are part of the things to help you develop bodhicitta. Now, when he spent that much time going there to learn this, you might think he might have just like rushed over to the teacher's house to, you know, ask him to learn from him. But no, what he did was actually he spent, I think, at least another 6 months just watching him, talking to his neighbors, talking to his students, kind of just anonymously sitting in and not, what they say, checking him out, just seeing whether he is a real Lama, a real teacher. And this is what, you know, Geshe Michael Roach and this Buddhist lineage says to do, to actually take the time to see if your teacher has these 10 qualities. Because they say, unlike, you know, maybe learning something that, you know, maybe if you don't learn a certain hobby, you're not so skilled at it. They say this is important because if, you know, you're learning Buddhism, it affects your mind. And the example that they've said, that they caution, is that, you know, some teachers might teach, for example, something which maybe is a bad karma, and they say that's a good thing to do, and you do it, well, you're going to get the results. Just say it was like, oh, it's fine to commit adultery, you know, in this lineage, and you trust this teacher and you do that, well, yeah, he'll get the bad karma from teaching you, but you'll get that bad karma from having done that action, right? So, and that consequence can affect you in this life or your future lives, right? So this is where they're just saying, caution you on choosing your teacher. In this way, I'm kind of sharing the open teachings. When I learned this, that first teacher that taught me, I didn't ask them to be my teacher. But after I finished these courses, I'm now moved into the supposedly secret teachings, which I'll explain later isn't really secret, but it's kind of the next path. And this is where I did need to ask someone to be my teacher. They're not, you could say there are books on it, but they need some explanation. And so I, went through these 10 points, and I kind of took, actually the teacher who's leading the meditation retreat is my tantric teacher. And he's the one that I took quite a few meditation classes with. And I would say, yeah, it was like about 6 months before I kind of asked him to be my tantric teacher. So these 10 points are part of the homework. So maybe it's still good to write down, even if you're not doing the homework. So what are the 10 qualities? One of them is practicing morality. Now, there's many lists in this Tibetan Buddhism. I told you it's quite intellectual. So they say practicing morality is one of 3 trainings. So example, I think it makes sense. If one hasn't tamed oneself, one can't tame another one. The Buddha said we are capable of 85,000 bad deeds, which they've kind of reduced to 10. I will make a note to share those next week. But yeah, so you want to see true practicing morality, keeping it. The second one is that there are the ability to concentrate. And concentration, even in yoga, is kind of the step before meditation, which is why usually when they say, oh, let's meditate, what we're really doing is trying to practice concentration, trying to keep our focus on our breath, something simple. So it is the second of 3 trainings. It is also the ability to be able to concentrate on an object, which you need to reach to see the direct perception of emptiness. But they also say it is about this gift of concentration is also being able to keep an awareness, awareness of what you're thinking, about what you're doing. And this really relates to yoga. You might have heard many teachers say, oh, you come to class and we're given all this instruction and reminders to check our breath, check our body. We're supposed to bring that same awareness once we're off the mat, that, in how you speak with others, how you feel when you're talking to others, what you act, right? Do things with awareness. You really do feel you have choice, whereas, you don't. So third quality to look for is, they say, wisdom. This is really like the third principal path. It is that they have an understanding of the correct view, which summarized would be like karma and emptiness. Karma, that an action leads to a result, good action leads to a good result, bad action leads to a bad result, and emptiness, that anything itself is not self-existent, so that you can affect, they say with lots of good karma, you can affect your future. Right? So these are the first 3 mental qualities of the teacher. The fourth one, this one might make sense too. They say spiritual qualities in excess of the student. And I like this one. They said this example. If you had a stick of incense and you put it around some other pieces of wood which had no scent, the other pieces of wood would absorb the scent of the incense. And so this is where they're saying, every teacher has its faults, their faults. But you hope that the teacher will have, qualities in excess of their faults, and that in excess of the students, so that you can absorb some of them by being around them, by learning from them. Number 5 is scriptural knowledge. So, the first three they said are mental qualities or realizations, but that they also are studying the books. Um, Whenever you see the word and hear the word sutra, Sutra, those are words from the Buddha. Right? You hear that a lot. What you're studying now, this course is a summary of the 5 great books, and so this is why, yeah, in the homeworks and the readings, they really do tell you, even though I know it's impossible to remember the source of them. It's just if someone else asked you, oh, where did you get that from, or what are you reading? At least you could look into the binder and say, yeah, I'm not. It isn't just somebody saying something on what they believed. It actually came um, either from the Buddha or commentary by another teacher. Okay. So number 6 is this direct perception of emptiness that I talked to you about. That hopefully this teacher has had that, or if they haven't, and I don't, excuse me, that they can explain it well, intellectually or with scripture. One interesting thing I'll add about is that supposedly if a teacher has experienced a direct perception of emptiness, they're not supposed to like brag about it. Supposed to kind of keep it in. And so I can say with John, Lama John, who I call, I feel he has. And this is where, the explanation is that, you should, they say, check into whether you feel they do, because you could ask them and they say no, and they did. Or they could say, well, they shouldn't lie. They shouldn't say they have seen it, they haven't. But they might say no, and yet you should, through their teachings and their explanations, that that they're explaining something which is hard to describe. You know, yeah. Okay. And so these first 6 qualities are the teacher themselves, and the last 4 are how they teach. So the 7th one, they say a master teacher. So they know how to teach students and what students are capable of. Teachers with number 8 is teachers with love and compassion, and not from a desire to gain money or fame or respect of others. Right? So number 9 is, I'd say, similar. But a little different. It's a deep desire to help others. It's almost like bodhicitta was how I remembered it, that they really have this desire to help other beings. So yeah, whereas the one before is like saying that they want to teach, but with a good motivation. Right? And then the last one is patient, as he or she is willing to explain things repeatedly. And yeah, you will hear some things repeated quite often, because as they say, hearing this explanation about emptiness, you have to hear like 10,000 times to have it kind of sink in. So, okay, these are the kind of 10 qualities to look for in a lama. They say if you can't check that they have all of them, that hopefully they have at least the first 5. So, and that is it. I thought maybe I'd go through it a little faster, but I did promise that if you had some questions, I know Kim, if you had some, at least I can answer some, especially today. We're not have to get out of the space. But Amber, I did want to thank you for coming. And so maybe what we'll do is we'll just kind of do the closing prostration and the prayer. That if either of you or both of you needed to go now, that's fine. You can always email a question, but if you wanted to, then I can answer some and not feel like we got to clean up and get out of the space. Right? So why don't we do our 3 prostrations? And then the last one, remember the closing prayer is on the back of the binder. The outside, we just have to repeat one time. And so it's a dedication of the goodness of a deed. Okay. So, by the goodness of what I've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the two ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. Namaste. Thank you both. Yeah. And definitely, if you need to go, do so. But if you had any questions, yeah, this might be a good one. Time, I
Okay.
know so much in class.
Sure, if that's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of the things I noticed for the homework for both the first class and the second class was they asked a question that I couldn't find in the reading. And I also noticed the footnotes have a lot of good information, so that's good.
Yep.
But then the footnotes talk about looking for note number whatever it is, and I'm not sure where to find that material. So
Okay.
I'll give you an example. Oh, let me just move my stuff here. So in the second reading, at the back are the footnotes.
Yes.
And one of the ones, which one is it? Craig, now I'm not going to be able to find it.
Yeah, no, not to worry. You're right. I do know. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yes. So in footnote number 33, and I didn't get this question accurately in my homework. I did my homework and then I checked the answer keys. And this one I didn't get because 33 was a footnote for two obstacles.
Yes.
And it doesn't say what the two obstacles are. It says see note 10. And I don't know I don't know what note 10 is. And then even under footnote number 34, it says see note 136. So I'm not sure. It's not in the direct reading that's clear in the class reading. So I'm not sure where to find that information.
Yeah, it's funny. It's good that you just said that. Okay. Is note number 10 on page 45?
Well, when I looked at note number 10 on page 45, it didn't relate to two obstacles. So then I made an assumption that that was not the note that they were referring to.
Oh, okay.
And then when they said, see note 136, well, 136 would probably be way far into the readings.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure does that mean I have to go and read that section?
Yeah, because I'm gonna try to look for that one because that is my guess too. That is my like so far I'm already into reading 6 and it's not because my guess is it is 136, 22 forms of the wish. And this is 2 types of desire to reach Buddhahood. I would guess it is because these are the only notes, like they don't have any other notes in the rest of the binder.
I was wondering if it was referencing the student notes. So I actually did look at the student notes, but the student notes aren't numbered.
No, yeah.
Now there's some good information in there.
Yes, you should always read those notes.
Yeah, but it didn't relate to those two questions. And those two footnotes were important for being able to answer the question. So I didn't get the question right about what the two obstacles were.
Okay.
And I don't know what note number 10 is because if it's referring back to another footnote, it does the footnote number 10 doesn't relate to the two obstacles.
because I'm looking at the note number 10. I would say it does have that answer, even though it's not exactly the same, because if you look at the second sentence, it says Buddhas are called victors because they have overcome the obstacles that prevent one from eliminating all thoughts, all bad thoughts, and knowing all things.
Right.
So
So
I'd
that's what I thought the answer was.
yes,
But
yes,
when I looked at the answer key, it
yes,
doesn't
yes.
look like that's correct.
Well, I'm looking at your answer, and the answer key says obstacles to omniscience, and
Right.
omniscience is actually knowing all things.
Right, but it didn't say anything. I don't think the answer key says anything about eliminating bad thoughts.
Well, bad thoughts would be mental afflictions. That's kind of like another way of saying it.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So there
Okay,
is
so
that. Yeah, yeah.
that's where I'm not like that's where I'm sometimes getting tripped up is
Yep, yep.
that the words that are being used to
Yes.
describe things, there's more than one way to describe things.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
That
in the
is where.
homework, I'm only seeing one way of describing it. And then sometimes,
Okay.
sometimes in the, yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
mental afflictions instead
Is like
of,
bad thoughts. Yeah.
yeah, that's
Yes.
what,
And then knowing
that
all
was my
things.
answer was
Good.
the inability to prevent bad thoughts, but
yeah.
I didn't think that that equaled mental affliction. So,
No, it is.
that-
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
okay.
I mean, I think omniscience I wouldn't have known because I didn't know the meaning of that. But yeah, mental afflictions are, your mental is your thoughts. So thoughts which are not so good. So it is, I would say that is the answer. But they in the answer key kind of are, you're right. There is different words for saying some of the same things. Like, in one of the first homeworks, it was like, oh, or it's this homework, it was actually saying, oh, how did Jason Kappa, why was he able to write it? And, the answer says, oh, with gentle voice.
Right.
And sometimes, gentle voice will have a different name like that. Here they put it as Manjushri. So maybe in the reading, it might say Manjushri, and then sometimes in the answer key, you'll hear his other name, his common name, or his
Right.
monk's name, and it can throw you off. So where you think there might be a little like disconnect, ask me, because sometimes I have used one term and then the reading uses another term. So they do
Okay,
have
so
that.
so
it-
then, so
Mhm.
for example, again, in the answer key on
Mhm.
class 2 for
Yes.
question 1 or for
Yeah.
question 2, what is the Sanskrit word for the Great Seal?
Mhm.
And it didn't have that word Mahamudra
Oh, okay.
in the reading.
Yes. Well, this is where I think I said it. Like I kind of look at the answers, and if it's not in the reading, I will try to say it in the class. So this is where sometimes I'll say, okay, this will be in the homework, and then write it down. So that is why if it's not, usually when I kind of prepare the class, I'll do the reading too, and I'll look at the homework and sometimes I even missed going over it. And this is why I sent you that email. And sometimes I will include like, oh, shucks, I forgot these two highlighted points that are not in the reading, not in the notes, but you'll need for the homework.
Okay.
So it should be amongst the three things, what you hear me say in class, in the reading or the notes, it should cover it. And if not, just say, I don't remember hearing it. And then,
Okay.
yeah. And then look at
Okay.
the answer key, and if
Okay.
the answer doesn't make sense, then that's a good time to ask me. It's like, I don't
Yeah.
understand that, where did it come from?
Right.
So
Because I wasn't sure, like the Great Seal was
Mhm.
a number of different, among a number of different, what did they call them? It was a number of highly advanced practices from the secret teachings of Buddha. So it was only one of them,
Yeah.
but I had no idea what it is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
All they do is say, tell us what the Sanskrit name is for it, but I don't know what it is. And I'm making the assumption that I will learn that as we go further.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah,
Like, I mean, I'm
okay.
looking at on page 2 of the notes, and it does say Mahamudra and it underlined it. And then, but you're right, they put means a direct perception of emptiness. It wasn't on the same line. It was kind of like the heading underneath.
Under the
So
students' notes, you mean?
yeah, under the students' notes, the class notes on
Right.
page 2. You see Mahamudra, and then it says Tibetan, Chakya, Chenpo, and then means a direct perception of emptiness. So that's where.
Let me just find that. That's students' notes on page 2.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. See, I would not have.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, it seems like that's just the meaning of the Chakya and Chenpo, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I can understand how that can be a little confusing. So not to worry. This is, you know, this is where I'll say, just kind of note sometimes when I'll be in class, sometimes I'll be reviewing things and you know, make notes for yourself. But if I say this will be on the homework, write it down or kind of note that, because sometimes it won't be so clear in the notes and I'm trying to repeat it. Sometimes I feel like it needs to be more clear. And so in my notes, I'll highlight it and, you know, kind of like I shared a lot in class, but the 10 things about the teacher, those are going to be, so I'm trying to make sure. So
Right.
I'll kind of preface it by saying this will be in the homework. And then if you hear me say that, try to make a note or, you know, circle it in some ways, because that might not be clear to you, so clear, but you can kind of write down what you hear and then see if it helps you when you read it later on.
Yeah.
Figure it
I
out.
always check my notes to see if I've got it there.
Yeah,
and then I do look at the footnotes, and I started looking at the students' notes.
Yeah. And that's what I was kind
So
of
it's a bit of a
writing.
puzzle.
It is. It is a little puzzle, which is, I guess, part of the fun of it, to make it a little like, okay,
Yeah.
you're gonna have to dig a little bit. But
Yeah, exactly. I don't mind digging.
okay, that's good. It's a
Yeah.
good way to kind of clear. Yeah. So good work.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, do look at if it says a note, it'll probably mean one in the future. Most of them try to do one in reverse, but yeah, like I think that one where it said C note 136, I have a feeling
Means
you
go
just gotta-
further.
Yeah. And that's what I
Okay.
was writing on. Yeah, take a look at that email, just because after I kind of go through, I'll be like looking at my notes like, oh shucks, I didn't say that, or I want to clarify that, and I'll put that in that email. So I
Okay.
will, I think I gave an answer to which I didn't cover, or
Right, for the first class.
oh,
Yeah,
the
I
second
remember
class
that.
too. Yeah, the second class too. Yeah, on that email,
Okay.
ACI 2. If you didn't get it, just let me know, because I'm sure I put you on that list.
Yep, I did get that.
Okay, and then in that body of the email, I started with, or maybe at the bottom, because I know not everyone's doing the homework. I probably put it on the bottom, like, oh, if you're doing the homework, these 2 things I didn't mention, but it's good for you.
Okay.
I want to know that, so
Okay.
I will do
Okay.
that there.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
That sounds great.
Good. That'll
All
help me.
right. Yes, thank you. Great work.
Right.
Mhm.
Good. Thank you
Great.
so much, Hogan.
You are so very welcome, and you have a great afternoon. We'll
Yeah, you
see
too.
you. I'm gonna call my
We'll
mom.
see you
and,
next Saturday.
Next Saturday. Right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amber.
Yes, you.
Thank you for coming. And you picked up the binder the first day, right?
Yes, yeah.
Good. Okay, so as long as I wasn't.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
glad you asked
good.
questions, because I had one of the notes. I was like, I don't know where that is, and then
I
just
know. Good. Yeah. Shoot me an email
I'm
if you
glad that.
yeah.
Thanks for asking questions, Kim.
Yeah.
No worries.
All right.
Okay.
Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too. Bye.